jack in alongside the station, and then we'll back area.
Yep.
That way we can drop it.
Yep.
I also mine right off the place.
All right. What's that for?
This thing.
It doesn't go any lower.
This? Well,
How
it's gonna
low is that drop?
It's gonna keep this from going, whacking
from
around.
turning.
This. If one of us goes one way and the other goes the other way, we should be okay. Oh, we're trying to keep it from turning here.
Yeah.
Well, how's hooking onto the mount gonna do it? We both hook on and go one way each.
Nice.
You pull yours that way, I pull mine this way.
welcome everyone to the Huguenot Steamer No. 1 Fire Station Museum. We're here for several reasons today. The first is to kick off the sesquicentennial celebration for the Oxford Fire Department. 2006 marks the 150th anniversary of the department, and we're pleased that we were able to complete this phase of our project to coincide with that. The other reason we're here is, of course, to have the inauguration of the Huguenot Steamer Fire Station and mark its transformation from a fire station into a museum. Those of you that entered, you saw a guest book in the lobby, and we ask that everyone please sign the guest book so that we have a nice record of who came today and shared this special day with us. Also in the meeting room to the side, there were some programs. Those of you that did not have an opportunity to pick up the program, I can tell you that we have essentially a few speakers for you today. Unfortunately, Dave Amiot, who is the president of the Firefighters Association, is currently off the coast of Hawaii on a cruise ship. And we were unable to establish the ship-to-shore radio link, so I will be presenting his remarks. After those introductory remarks, I'll be giving everyone just a brief overview of the project, the organization, the Oxford Firefighters Association. After that, Deputy Chief Clayton Tortolot, who is essentially the department historian, will be presenting a short talk on two pieces that are the centerpiece of our collection. To my left here is the Colonel DeWitt hand tub, the first fire engine purchased by the town of Oxford in 1856. It was delivered in 1857 and served the town proudly for many years. In the center of the bay, to my right, is the Huguenot steamer. And Deputy Chief Tortolot will be giving you a history on that. After that, we'll have a short intermission and end the day with a brief video presentation showing the project through all its phases. So with that, we can begin. Again, David Amiot was unable to be with us, but he asked me to read a short speech that he put together for this occasion. I'm sorry that I'm unable to be with you this morning. However, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge what is being celebrated today. A great accomplishment has been achieved by several forward-thinking individuals who hold a deep appreciation for history and recognize the significance of the irreplaceable part of the community in which we gather today. This building has been a very important part of Oxford's past, both in terms of public safety and as a village meeting hall. Now, with the vision of its present caretakers, it will stand as an attractive and functional element of the neighborhood for future generations to enjoy. Much effort has been expended to make this project succeed, and a good deal of thanks is naturally in order. Although it would be difficult to thank each individual who helped make this project happen over the last 7 years, I would like to acknowledge the past Board of Selectmen who had faith in us and gave us the chance to prove ourselves. Additionally, I would like to thank every generous citizen who donated to our fundraising, every last member of the Firefighters Association who pounded nails, and everyone in between who shared our vision and made it a reality. To all, I am very grateful. My sincere hope is that the members of our community are happy with the results of our efforts to date, and that many of them will come back and regularly visit to enjoy themselves. In closing, my sincere thanks to everyone for coming today and sharing this important day with us. I hope that you all enjoy yourselves, maybe see some old friends, and hopefully make some new. Please make it a point to come back and visit. Thanks again. And it's signed sincerely, David Amiot, President of the Oxford Firefighters Association. Again, just by way of background, I'd like to explain to everyone who in fact we are. The Oxford Firefighters Association was originally comprised of current and former members of the Oxford Fire Department. Membership in the association is not mandatory. You can be on the fire department and not be involved with the association. It's a private nonprofit organization. It was originally started in 1991, and essentially the organization sought to support the efforts of the fire department, improve the quality of services rendered, purchase uniforms for their members, etc. And it served in that capacity for most of the 90s, although it became somewhat dormant in later years. In 1997, the association was reorganized by its current membership, and we revised our charter under the three basic tenets of service, brotherhood, and history. And you'll see that noted on our patch that the association members are wearing, and also on some of the displays around the museum. As part of our reorganization, we sought and received federal 501c3 recognition, which allowed us to do some fundraising to support the project that you see here today. We do have some service programs that remain active. We sponsor a Colonel DeWitt Scholarship that we award. In fact, this year we awarded 2 scholarships. We sponsor a Little League team. We support muscular dystrophy through their boot drive program. And of course, the Historic Preservation Project, which we're discussing today. One of the first questions that we received when we talked about starting a project of this magnitude was, why do it? Very, very large-scale project. Why would we want to undertake it? And the reason we undertook it is opportunities, I think is the easiest way to express that. Those of us in the association have a deep appreciation for history, and we noted with great interest that the 150th anniversary of the department was going to be on us in 2006. We were also very fortunate in that we knew of many of the department artifacts as being still in existence. As I mentioned, the Colonel DeWitt hand tub that you see to my left. We also have a 1934 quadruple combination truck, which is being stored in Company 2 across the street. Of course, the Huguenot steamer, which was being displayed down on Cape Cod, and the fire station itself that we're in today. We saw this as an opportunity to basically bring all those artifacts together into the museum or into the fire station and preserve them for the people of Oxford in years going forward. We essentially see ourselves as the caretakers of the department history, and we welcome that role and hope that we can do a good job at doing so. I guess to understand the history of the station, you need to at least have a little glimpse of the history of the department. The department was organized in November of 1856. There was a variety of fires that year, and the town fathers saw the need to establish a formal fire department. Essentially, they purchased the Colonel DeWitt, and that was the sole piece of fire apparatus that served the town for several decades. In 1884, as Oxford continued to grow northward, a lot of mill industries were springing up in the north part of town, bringing with it residents and the need for improved fire protection. At that point, the town fathers decided, it was voted at town meeting, that they would appropriate funds to purchase a new fire truck and a building in which to house it, and that is the building that we're standing in today. Again, the building was started in 1884, the year the steamer was purchased. And at the 1885 town meeting, local residents in North Oxford petitioned to have a second story added. They thought they would have a need for a meeting hall or a place to gather without driving to the center of town. And the town approved that, and what later became known as Huguenot Hall is upstairs. The building that we're in now served the department through 1975, at which point it was closed, and the fire station across the street was constructed. The building essentially sat dormant at that time and became somewhat of a warehouse for various town agencies, including the police department and the highway department and whatnot. So it was essentially a big warehouse, if you will. To give you again an overview of the timeline, in 1997 the association was reorganized, and in 1998 we announced our Historic Preservation Project, of which the station was a part. That was somewhat of an uphill battle. Again, it was a very large-scale project, and the selectmen and town manager at the time were skeptical of our capability and our ability to pull off such a large project. And then in 1998 and 1999, serendipity stepped in the form of a microburst storm. Those of you may remember that we had originally they thought it was a tornado, but the National Weather Service later said it was actually a microburst storm. And it came right up the French River, which is behind us to the left here, and did extensive damage. It knocked some trees over, which actually struck the building, opening a hole in the roof and allowing rainwater and other elements into the structure. There was extensive damage on all of the north walls, upstairs and downstairs. And it really, although it looked like it was a bad thing at first, it made a decision necessary. And we were able to convince the town fathers that they should take a shot with us, and they did. So again, the storm, it was the impetus that got the project rolling. At the town meeting in 1999, the town voted to authorize a feasibility study from a professional architectural service, and we've used that document as our guideline, if you will, our Bible, in doing some of the restoration work. As that project kicked off, again, late 1999, early 2000, a battle opened up on another front. Working with the fire department, the Firefighters Association began conversations about returning the steamer to town. Clayton Tortolot will speak to that a little bit in more depth later. But it was a nice fit with our project here, and those conversations took place. I'm happy to report, obviously, that in 2002 the steamer did come home, and that's why we're able to display it in our bay here. To give you an idea of the scope of what we've accomplished to date, essentially we've done the building exterior and the first floor museum. Ultimately, we will continue our efforts with the Huguenot Hall phase of the project, and we will return that to use as a meeting hall and activity hall, if you will. We're looking forward to that. It's a very beautiful room, if you will. The architecture is very interesting, and I think the other association members will agree with me that what we see upstairs is going to be very impressive. So we're looking forward to that phase. Essentially what we've done, we've replaced the roof since we purchased the building from the town. We've completed stripping and painting of the building exterior, and we've done that twice. One of the conditions for sale of the building, and by the way, I should mention that we did pay $1 for the building, so I think we had our money's worth. One of the conditions of the sale was that we needed to make some immediate repairs and reparations. The building had sat dormant since 1975 and had been painted occasionally, but it was in great disrepair. So we sought to initially repaint the building the white and black colors that everyone is probably familiar with, and we accomplished that in fairly short order after taking ownership. Remarkably, the building, being from 1884, was in good shape. There was some sill damage, and everyone thought perhaps that was structural to the point where the building might be falling down. We had several surveyors come in and inspect the building, and we found that the building materials and the size of what the materials were used in those days, there was some surface rot, but the sills were in essentially good shape. Thankfully, it's a very warm day, and we're enjoying our new heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system. The electrical system was upgraded. The room that you're in now, the truck bay, was in such disrepair that we essentially replaced all the board and put in new plaster. However, in the meeting room and the foyer out to my right, we made repairs to the plaster, so those are original walls. The first floor has been entirely painted. Our finial, which is at the top of the hose tower, was lovingly restored. And on the first floor here, you see antique reproduction windows with antique glass. And of course, our striking carriage house doors on the front of the building, for which we've received many accolades. We thought it important to be true to the restoration of the building and not utilize new materials, modern materials, although it would be easier. We wanted to preserve the character of the building, and that's why you see these extensive antique reproductions down on the first floor here. Our bathroom has been refurbished. We now have a working fire alarm. Beautiful sign on the front of the building, which was a recreation from photographs, which was done by Captain Jeff Milos, who's here today. And one of the questions we always get is how much have you spent? How much money has this cost? The work that we've completed to date that you see here is just short of $100,000. And that does not include the sweat equity of the Firefighters Association and some other contractors who have supported us over the years. We're estimating probably about another 2,000 man-hours of physical labor, hammering nails, painting, etc. And then probably several hundred hours on top of that for things such as grant writing, going to meetings looking for sources of funding. So it was quite an extensive process. It's an interesting story as to how we were able to get that amount of money for being such a small organization. We started out with very humble beginnings, and those of you that walked through the meeting room may have noticed the pancake mix on the table. To understand the story of the Firefighters Association, you need to understand that we sold many pancakes to raise funds early on. In addition, we had flower sales and other small-scale fundraisers of that nature. And that allowed us, the funds that we garnered from those events allowed us to do a mass mailing to the people of Oxford. We essentially put together a small flyer that talked about our historic preservation project, and the town of Oxford residents responded greatly. We secured about $6,000 in donations from that mass mailing, and that allowed us to embark on our project and stabilize the building with new paint, sills, and whatnot. Additionally, we have received grants. We received 2 partnerships from the Huguenot organization. We had a great $25,000 grant from the Mass Turnpike Authority. And we also looked at more unconventional means, if you will. We sold cat's meows, replica buildings. That was an interesting fundraiser. We partnered with Yankee Magazine to sell subscriptions. And half of each subscription that was sold under the Oxford Firefighters name, we received cash donation. We have used professional fundraising, and of course, as I mentioned, for sweat equity. I'll conclude my remarks by saying, giving you some idea as to where we're going. As we go forward, we're planning to take a little bit of a break here so that we can celebrate the sesquicentennial. I mentioned that today was the kickoff of that. And that will culminate in September with a parade and antique hand-tug muster at the center of town, at the community center area. Again, September 9th, I believe, is the day on that. With regard to our project, we're going to continue our fundraising, and we will begin work on the second floor as time permits. We really don't have a firm plan in place for completion because, again, it is contingent on availability of funding. Grants are very hard to get these days, as others in the historical community can tell you, but we're going to keep working at it to make sure that we can bring this to completion. So we hope we're doing a good job. We've had good comments from everyone, and we're very pleased to be able to serve this function. Thank you very much. I'd like to ask Deputy Chief Clayton Tortolot to come forward now. And again, Deputy Chief Tortolot will be presenting historical perspectives on our apparatus.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you all for coming out this morning to this great fire station and helping us to kick off our sesquicentennial celebration of the Oxford Fire Department. This is a very exciting event for many people today. A lot of work has led up to this ceremony, starting back in 1998 when the vision was generated of saving this 122-year-old building from the wrecking ball, someday creating a fire museum. Later this morning, you'll see another presentation from the association on this ambition and the now nearly complete project. Coinciding with the building renovations, another exciting project was undertaken to secure and bring back home 2 of our original pieces of fire apparatus. This work consisted of making many contacts, writing proposals, field trips were taken, bids were submitted, and ultimately we have the results in front of you. And I just want to take a minute to say that it's with heartfelt gratitude that we give special thanks to former Chief Ralph Miller, who's with us today, and current Chief Jeff Wilson for helping to steer those efforts in securing the necessary funding to bring these artifacts home for all of our citizens to enjoy for many generations. I'm, of course, referring to the 2 magnificent pieces you see before you. And what I'm going to do this morning, I'll keep my remarks brief, but I want to just give you a few historical notes and background on these 2 pieces, so as you walk around, you have the opportunity to walk around later and enjoy yourself and mingle. When you're looking at them, you'll have some idea of their significance to not only members of the fire department, but as to the townspeople and in history in general. As Dan mentioned, it all started back in 1856. Now, one thing you want to keep in mind, Oxford was settled and organized, got their charter from the state in 1713. They went 143 years without any formal fire protection here in town. Up to that time, fire protection would have been a local neighbor helping neighbor type of effort. If your house or barn caught on fire because of the sparks from your chimney or whatnot, which is what a common occurrence was in those days, you would gather up your family and friends, get your water buckets, fill them up at the well, and try to stop the fire the best you could. More often than not, you suffered the loss of what you couldn't save, whether it be your whole house, your barn, your animals, what have you. So it took 143 years until the town realized that they were big enough, they were organized enough that maybe they needed some organized fire protection. Just to give you a quick background of Oxford, in 1856, when the fire department was started, it was already a bustling town. It had already, probably 23 years prior, rejected a bid to be the county seat because the politicians felt that would bring in corruption and politics to town. They just didn't want that. But the town was big enough at that point, and it was actually considered for the county seat of Worcester. We could have been Worcester. There were already 5 churches in town: the Congregational Church, which sits on Main Street; the Universalist Church, which the building still stands on the corner of Barton Street and Main Street. First Baptist Church was already established and operating. There was a Methodist Church that sat at the other end of Barton Street at the intersection of Charlton Street. And St. Roch's was actually operating at that time right on the corner of Main Street and Water Street. There were several mill buildings: cotton mills, woolen mills. The Joslin Company had a shoe and boot mill, and the Chafee Brothers had a wooden box mill, which sat down in where the old Weber lumber mill was, or Webster Spring facility was. And along with those mills were several mill villages. The employees for a lot of these mills were actually brought into town from England, from Canada, from other areas, and the owners of these mills actually erected housing in little villages propped up around the mills for their employees. They included little stores, housing, community centers, what have you. Already by that time, there were mills down at Buffum Mill, Howarth Mill, Chafee Village, and White's Village, which was at the corner of Depot and Old Depot Road, down here by just prior to Princeman's Mills. So Oxford was already a bustling little town. At this time, Clara Barton, who we're all familiar with, was already 35 years old. She's a seasoned school teacher, preparing to enter into her next venture with the oncoming Civil War, which was going to occur in another 4 years, although she probably didn't realize it at the time, but her life was about to change. There are also 2 post offices in town, one in the Center Tavern, and one up north on Leicester Street, just before Route 20. So it was a bustling little town. In 1856, the town suffered 4 destructive fires where somebody had lost their houses. So the selectmen were instructed to start a fire department, and they appointed a board of fire engineers to operate such department and purchase a piece of apparatus. So this piece of apparatus off to my left is actually the first piece of fire apparatus that was purchased in town. It's referred to as a side-stroke hand pumper. It was originally designed to be hand-drawn. It could be converted to horse-drawn at some point, but it was originally designed to be hand-drawn. You can see actually at one point they did add a tractor seat on the front. That is not original equipment, but when they were able to hook a horse up to it, that would allow the driver to place to sit. As you see it right now, just to give you a vision of how this functions, these handles you see are folded in the up position, the stored position. When they would arrive at a fire scene, these handles fold down. They pin in place by these brass pins you see. One comes down this side, one goes down the other side, and approximately 10 to 20 men would gang up on these handles, and they actually pump and it rocks back and forth, side to side. And that drives the pistons in the front here, which move the water. This was manufactured by the Jeffers Company in Nantucket, Rhode Island. Jeffers Company was a fire apparatus builder of the time, building many fire trucks of this type for the city of Providence, Rhode Island, Boston, all the way up the East Coast. And Oxford decided to go with that company. That company actually stayed in business for several years. When the hand tubs were converted to steam pumpers, when the technology turned over, they continued on building steam pumpers. So they were around for quite a while. They were known as one of the better manufacturers on the East Coast. In conjunction with this, what they purchased is a hose cart, which we do not have, unfortunately. But the hose cart was just a simple reel on two wheels that was hand-pulled, and that carried the hose that would be hooked up to this to put the water on the fire. Also, what you see on here is these large black hoses on the top. This is what they refer to as a squirrel tail suction. This hose would be unstrapped from the top, unfolded and dropped into a water well or cistern, or a pond or a river. And when they started pumping this engine, this would create a vacuum in the cylinder and it would suck water up through that hose. And so that's how the water got into the engine. This brass fitting up at the front is where they would hook their fire hoses and play the hose out with a nozzle on the end to put the fire out. Just to give you an idea, one of their normal drills for the Colonel DeWitt Company was to take this engine out to the, basically their station was on Barton Street. They would go across the street to the Universalist Church, which had a spire on it. The spire is now gone off that building. The spire was about 90 feet high. And they would be able to squirt water. Within 3 minutes, they would have a stream of water shooting over the church spire. So this could put out some serious fire. The big advantage, of course, with fighting fires was that they no longer had to get close to the fire to throw a bucket of water on. Now they could stand 100 feet away safely and put a lot more water on. And they usually did a pretty good job as long as they had water when they got to the fire. That was the other problem. They'd often pull up to a farmhouse or something and the well would be dry and they couldn't access the well, and they would literally sit there helpless while the house burned because they had no water source. So one of the things that the fire engineers would recommend on a regular basis is the town build more cisterns. And there's still several cisterns located around town today that had either been filled in or they're still there, just nobody knows about them. It wasn't until probably 1900, 1902 that a water system was actually built in town where they had started putting in some hydrants. So that's how this piece operated. The name on the side, Colonel DeWitt, is an interesting story in itself. Colonel DeWitt was a local statesman and politician, businessman here in town in the 1800s. About this time, he was about 56 years old. Not really sure where the title colonel came from. He had no active military service, but I'm under the impression that it was an honorary title conveyed in those days to people of his stature. He was actually served on the Board of Selectmen for a few terms. He served as the state legislator. At the time the fire department was organized, he was actually serving middle of the term as U.S. Congressman from this district of the country. He was on the board of directors of the Oxford Bank. Him and his three brothers actually started a woolen mill when they first got into business. That's how he got into his business and made his money, actually. He owned a large parcel of land on the corner of Main Street and Barton Street, essentially going down that whole side of Barton Street off of Main Street. And when he learned that the fire department was being organized, he actually donated a parcel of his land to build a fire station. fire station was actually built by subscription. In other words, they went out to townspeople as a group and donated, solicited private donations to build the station. And as was tradition in those days, in honor of his efforts and generosity, they named their station and the apparatus after him. So the fire company was known as the DeWitt Engine Company, and they named their piece the Colonel DeWitt 1. So, this piece served the town until approximately 1921, I believe, when they purchased a motorized fire engine from Jackson Ford on Main Street in Oxford, and this became more of a secondary piece. The piece remained in town until somewhere around 1943, 1945. They have records of the piece still being in town. It was not in service, but it was in town. After that, it mysteriously disappeared from town, and eventually turned up in the hands of a private collector. It was located down on Cape Cod. This collector had grand visions of a fire museum. He had amassed a great collection of fire apparatus, basically had it all stored in a barn. Upon his eventual demise, his death, his family tried to make contact with as many original departments that they could identify to see if anyone was interested in procuring these back. And as I mentioned previously, Chief Ralph Miller at the time took the bull by the horns and organized an effort to procure this back. I believe the town paid $3,500 for it to bring it back home. And we were fortunate enough to also have a local contact in the town of Leicester, Mr. Donald Lennerton, who's here today with his son, graciously put a lot of sweat equity and time into refurbishing it to the condition you see today. Although we actually had to cut a deal with them. As a side note, there was a fire engine that was located in town for many years. It was down in the basement of the library. It was called Old Deaf Joe. It was lettered on the side of it. It was a much smaller unit than this. And for years, people were under the impression that was Oxford's first fire truck. Well, actually it was not. It belonged to Leicester. And we were just kind of hiding it. I guess the story goes they were moving or had to find a home for it, and at some point North Oxford offered space to hold it, and it ended up in the Oxford Library eventually. But through the research of Mr. Lennerton and whatnot, and his persistence, he was able to work a deal where we gave him Old Jeff Joe back if he would refurbish our engine. So it kind of worked out pretty good. But so that's why you don't see Old Jeff Joe here. It's not his home. So that's basically this piece here. Like I said, it's a pretty simple machine. The craftsmanship, you'll see if you take a good look at it, is impeccable. The strength and the ruggedness of the way they built those in those days stands testament to likely standing here today on its own four wheels. And if anyone's interested in these types of apparatus, as Dan mentioned, September 9th, we're continuing our celebration with a hand tub muster. There's actually an organization that has several of these in working condition. And there will probably be 8 to 10 of them here in town September 9th, actually pumping water and competing against each other. So that's going to be quite a thing to see. Unfortunately, this one will not be competing. It's not reached that stage of its life. In the center of the room is probably our showpiece piece, what's referred to as the Huguenot steamer. And this is a steam engine. It's actually a steam boiler. Uses steam to turn a turbine which turns a water pump, which pumps the water. So instead of manually having to pump these handles up and down. This was all done mechanically by steam. This was purchased in 1884 from the Silsby Company up in Seneca, New York. They're one of the largest and the most famous makers of steam fire engines. That company technically is still around today. It's known as the American LaFrance Company. That was the lineage of that company has gone all the way to the famous name of American LaFrance. It's changed hands several times, obviously, but the reputation of that company is still around today. This was purchased for fire protection up here in North Oxford, as Dan mentioned, in 1884 as the mill villages expanded up Route 12 into North Oxford. They saw a need for fire protection up in the north end of town. What was happening was they were losing too many houses. It was taking too long for this piece to be pulled all the way from the center of Plain all the way up to North Oxford. At one point, they even went as far as hooking a horse onto this piece, sending it on the road, and the fire company would jump on the train and take the train to North Oxford and meet the truck up here. Kind of a unique way of doing it, but that was their mode of travel last days, and that's what they had to do to get it done. But this piece was built, like I said, in 1884. This building that we're sitting in was built specifically for this piece. This was designed as to be both hand-drawn and or horse-drawn. And the interesting part, if you look at it later, the actual drawbar is on the floor underneath it. When installed, that plugs into the front and it sticks out the front of the engine. That was for the horses to be hooked on. You see a cross piece where the horse hitches would be hooked on. You also look, if you look at the front of the engine underneath, there's two reels of rope with a hand crank on. That was for the hand pulling. If they didn't have the horses available, they could actually gang up along that bar, grab onto those ropes, and pull that engine. Now that must have been quite a job, because that engine weighs about 4,800 pounds as it sits there. The horses, obviously, Oxford did not own fire horses. There were no stables. If there were, you would have seen stables built into the station here, as was common in many of the larger city departments that were responding all the time. What Oxford did was they actually contracted with a local carrier called Vinton Brothers, and it was, instead of trucking companies back then, they had people with horse and buggies, obviously, to carry the freight and do your freight hauling. Vinton Brothers was the local company up here in North Oxford. So when a fire was sounded, the Vinton Brothers would be notified. They would get one of their horses down here and hook it up to the steamer. And by the time the firemen arrived here, they would then pull the steamer to the fire with the horses. The other interesting note on here, the missing piece, one of the missing pieces of this apparatus was the heater. When they actually purchased this engine from the factory, it comes with a heater, which was coal-fired originally, and that would sit in the back of the station, back corner of the station here, and be on constantly. And what that would do is heat water, and it would be piped into the back of the engine, so the steam boiler would always have warm water. When they would come to respond with the apparatus, they had to unhook that steam pipe and start a fire in the back of the engine. And you'll see the bucket in the back there with some coal in there. I don't know how old that coal is. I don't know if it dates back to 1800 or not, but they would actually have to start a fire before they left the station. And en route to the fire, to the fire scene that they were going to, the fire in the boiler would be generating enough heat and starting to boil the water in that tank to create the steam. They actually operated for several years that way, and then at one point they eventually decided that maybe they ought to buy some insurance against the steam boiler and have it checked and registered as a regular steam boiler. It was a very risky business. That was not something that just anybody could run. You had to be an actual steam engineer to maintain the proper water levels. You see the various gauges and sight glasses on there, and that was all to maintain the various levels. So you actually had it's a two-piece machine. One part is an actual steam boiler, the other part is a fire engine. We're very fortunate to have this piece. Again, this was left town sometime in mid-1940s, probably under the cloak of darkness, we're not sure. But again, it ended up down on Cape Cod in the New England Fire and History Museum in Brewster. It was actually owned by SPNEA, which is the Society for Preservation of New England Antiquities. And the story evolved that the owner of the museum passed away just within the last few years, actually. This family was not interested in running the museum, and we approached the museum at that time. We approached SPNEA, the owners, and told them we'd like to have that back in town here, and what would it take to do that? Well, they wanted to play hardball, and instead of being generous and just giving it to us, which would have been very nice, they said, well, we're going to have it appraised. Well, that's all we needed, because now they brought in the licensed appraiser of antique fire apparatus. And he says, that piece is worth about $52,000 if you were to sell it today. If we were to, the other thing he says we could do is we could take it to auction, and you could probably make $100,000 on it at auction. Our hearts kind of dropped. At that point, we said, well, there goes that chance. We'll never get that back. But they told us, if you really want it, submit us a proposal, write us a proposal on what you're going to do with it, how you're going to preserve it, how you're going to present it and showcase it, what it's going to do for you. So we said, okay, we'll go through the exercise. So we, the Board of Fire Engineers and some others interested, sat down and wrote a proposal. The Firefighters Association put a lot of input into it as far as their building renovation, which was going on about the same time. And lo and behold, they accepted our proposal. We went through the legal proceedings to make a transfer, but we did end up having to purchase it outright from them. They still would not give it to us. So we actually went to town meeting. It was on a town meeting warrant for the town to purchase this piece back. And at that point, as I mentioned previously, Fire Chief Jeff Wilson, who was also the EMS director, most graciously stepped up and offered some funding from the ambulance reserve accounts that we had to bring this piece back into town. So it sits here with literally with no tax dollars. It was we almost look at it as a gift from the ambulance department, if you want to be technical about it. But there was a lot of people involved, and town meeting did have to vote to accept it. And we graciously thank the members of the town for bringing this home. This piece served the town until about 1923, again when they purchased a motorized piece, the GMC fire apparatus to replace it. And today, there are probably less than 400 of these types of apparatus still existing as you see these sitting today. And we've documented there are only about 15 in the state of Massachusetts, and this is one of them right here. So there's a lot of sentimental value to a lot of people to have something like this sitting in the original station, in the original town that was purchased for. That's really all I have to say. I won't drag on much more, but that gives you an idea of what you're looking at as you peruse through here. This other piece is actually it's a hand-drawn or a horse-drawn ladder truck owned by the city of Worcester. It's on loan to us from the city of Worcester. That served as their engine 6 for many years. It was stationed up at the Greendale station in Worcester. You can just get an idea when you look at the weight and mass of those ladders, what it would take to throw a ladder and extend it up 30, 40 feet on a snowy day. That's why it still remains a young man's job today. That's all I have, Dan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. We're going to take a short intermission right now, maybe just 5 or 10 minutes, give everyone a chance to stretch their legs. We do have coffee and donuts available in the next room. Right after that, we have a few concluding remarks, and then we'll run that video for those of you that are interested in seeing that. So let's meet back here about 5 or 10 minutes. Thank you. Obviously, we have many people to thank for the project itself over the last 7 years or so, but we also want to acknowledge some of the folks that are with us today that helped us out. Over here we have Peter Graham, who was one of our contractors that did a lot of the paint work here and taught a few of us firemen how to paint. I think we did a good job with that. At the soundboard there is Mr. Jeff Blanias from the Construction Equipment Maintenance Organization, or Association. We'd like to thank him for the fine loan of the audio equipment today. Andy and Tony Triano from Access Oxford are here. Tony had to run out for another event, but Andy has assumed the helm of responsibility here. And of course, Robin Maston, our staff photographer for the Oxford Firefighters Association. And also the Simpkins family along the wall here for providing coffee and donuts for all of us today. I'd like to just thank all those folks for what they've done. If I could ask a few folks to come forward, please. Our current fire department management, if you will. Chief Jeff Wilson, management. Deputy Chief Clayton Tortolot. And District Chief Ron Stevens. Please come forward. District Chief Paul Molesky is not with us today, but we do want to recognize him as well. And also, we're pleased to have some past chiefs with us today. Chief Ralph Miller, if you come forward. That's okay, it's a hot day. A few gentlemen would perhaps stand over here. Chief Gary Wilson, who came all the way from Guilford, New Hampshire to be with us today. Thank you very much, Chief. Also, former Chief Mike Plant is not here today, but again, we want to recognize Mike. As we said, today marks the beginning of the sesquicentennial celebration of the Oxford Fire Department, and we just wanted to recognize our current and former chiefs with just a small token. Captain Milos here to my right is going to present them with a dash plaque, which is a commemorative plaque of the Huguenot steamer and the Colonel DeWitt Anta. These plaques will be part of the parade and sesquicentennial celebration in September, but we wanted to present these gentlemen with a small token of our gratitude.
Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Milos, Lieutenant Barry. Members of the department, family and friends and guests of the association, I want to be very brief and say thank you to the Oxford Firefighters Association for a couple of things. Number one, proving me wrong. I have to be very humble in saying, shortly after the microburst is that what we classified it as, the microburst in 98, 99, I was quoted in the paper as the emergency management director saying we won't have to worry about the building, they'll be torn down. I'm sure if we would have left it to taxpayer money, that's exactly where we would be. It becomes extremely difficult in our times to weigh the needs of the operational of schools, general government, public safety, and the needs of protecting or taking care of our heritage. It seems that our heritage, more often than not, does not survive with tax dollars. Though we do not always see eye to eye with the association, we totally agree with this project, and I think that the members, past and present members of the fire department and the civilian members of the Oxford Firefighters Association deserve a great hand for the job that has been done so far in this building. department 34 years ago, there was always the discussion about this hunk of iron called the Huguenot steamer. It disappeared from town, never to be seen again. Wouldn't it be great if it came back? And one of the pictures that the association has out here on the table is a picture of it sitting in its temporary home in Brewster. That's all we ever saw. Continually heard about it. We'll never see it again. It's gone forever. Wouldn't it be great? It was like this elusive dream for 34 years that I've been listening to. A collaborative effort between everybody, the town of Oxford, more importantly the Firefighters Association, Deputy Chief Turtelon, and the department. Welcome back home to Huguenot Steamer number 1. Thank you, Oxford Firefighters Association.
I have one addendum to my earlier story, if you'll humor me for a few minutes. Part of the tradition and operation of the hand tubs was their muster activities. And fire musters go back to the earliest days of firefighters competing against one another, trying to outdo one another, show one company is better than the other. And here in town was no different. The Colonel DeWitt crew was always looking for a good muster, a good chance to show. Actually, their first outing, they took delivery of this unit in April of 1857. In September of that same year, they participated in a very large muster in the city of Worcester. They competed against 60 hand tubs, and they came in 24th, which was pretty good for a company that had been in operation for less than a year. One of the musters they participated in 1905, they invited the town of Douglas up to compete against their hand tub. They went down to the old fairgrounds off of Fairlawn Ave and put together a little muster, competed against themselves. They threw up $25 for cash for prize money between the two of them. Well, of course, Oxford won because we're the hometown, we were going to win anyways. So what they did with their $25, they took the $25, they came home, they fed the Douglas crew, and they still had $13 left. But what they did was they went out and bought themselves a trophy. And this is the actual trophy that they purchased. It's engraved, won at the Oxford Fair, Colonel DeWitt Company, September 8, 1905, in the tub contest, Oxford versus Douglas. And we found this among our artifacts of the companies. We've got it cleaned up, and I'd like to present that to the museum here as an integral piece of the Colonel DeWitt. It'll be on loan from the Oxford Fire Department, but I think it's an important piece that should be part of the artifacts. Thank you. Give that to you today.
Thank you very much, and speaking on behalf of the Firefighters Association, I can assure you that we will safeguard this at the same level as we do the other trucks. Thank you very much. Thanks, Chief. Anything else? Good. Well? Oh, here. Thanks.
We only had one left.
One other matter of business. Clearly, this project has been ongoing for 7 years and has required the time and talents of many individuals. Whether it be hands-on work, hammering nails, or writing grant applications, as I said before, or driving down at all hours of the night to meet a contractor that locked his tools in the station. A great effort was put forth by a lot of people. However, one individual has gone above and beyond the call throughout this entire project, not only lending copious amounts of time, but also talent and guidance. Much knowledge in terms of building restoration, if you will, electrical systems, heating systems, and that was proved to be invaluable throughout the process. So on behalf of the Oxford Firefighters Association, I would like to present Captain Jeff Milos with the Oxford Firefighters Association Outstanding Service Award, and I'll read this for the benefit of you in the back. Oxford Firefighters Association Outstanding Service Award presented to Captain Jeff Milos for your expertise, craftsmanship, and outstanding hands-on support of the Oxford Firefighters Association Historic Preservation Project. Presented at the inauguration of the Huguenot Steamer No. 1 Fire Museum, 29 July 2006. Jeff, thank you very much. Again, Dave Amiot, our president, was integral in getting this for Jeff, and he's sorry he can't be here today to make the presentation. But Jeff, on behalf of Dave and the rest of us in the association, thank you very much.
Thank you.
What else? Putting together a volunteer organization and undertaking a project of this magnitude can be quite a daunting task. Up until several years ago, membership in the Oxford Firefighters Association was limited to present and former members of the department. As the project started, we had some interest from some folks outside of the fire service who shared our vision and shared our appreciation of history. And certainly that project could not have been completed without their support. We have one gentleman with us today, Rooney Simkus, who has been very active, and we appreciate his time and what he has brought to this project. And if you'll excuse me another moment. We need to keep these things secret, so that's why we're in the back there. Rooney, if you come forward. On behalf of the Oxford Firefighters Association, I'd like to present you with the traditional firefighter's Reuben for your work and great appreciation for all that you've done. Thank you very much. That essentially concludes my remarks. I will say one thing, in walking around at the intermission, it's been fascinating hearing some of the old stories about the station, about the service. And I would welcome all those who have such stories to come and join us at our monthly meetings. The Oxford Fire Association meets on the second Saturday of each month in this building. And we would love for you to come and share some of your stories. Although some of us have a lot of gray hair, we still like to think that we're fairly young men, and we don't have a lot of the old stories. So we'd like if you could share that with us. Again, second Saturday of each month. Please feel free to register in the log on the front. That way we can get in touch with you if we so need. With that, I'm going to conclude my remarks and take about 5 minutes to set up the screen. And at that time, we'll run the video presentation for those of you to enjoy. The screen will be set up right here facing outwards, so there's some seats available here. And if you fill the aisle, you should be able to see that presentation. Again, thank you to everyone who came today. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Officer Chris Haydes with the Oxford Police Department. Today I'm out here with traffic enforcement utilizing the department's newest piece of equipment, which is the Stalker LiDAR gun. The LiDAR gun is slightly different from a regular radar gun in the fact that this shoots out a direct laser beam and signals on one specific vehicle. The speed is measured based on the light that's reflected off the vehicle and sent back to the gun itself. With a normal radar gun, a cone is sent out, delivering a signal, which bounces off the closest vehicle and sends it back to the gun, giving a reading. With the LiDAR gun, we can be more accurate. It can focus on one particular vehicle instead of just the closest one. Now, the first part of traffic enforcement, obviously, is knowing the speeds and knowing the speed limits. On Main Street here in this particular stretch, because it's near the center, there's a lot of businesses, there's a lot of residences. It's a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, and that speed's determined by Chapter 90 Mass General Laws, which determine that in a thickly settled area, the speed limit should be 30 miles per hour unless otherwise posted. The second step is estimating the speed of a vehicle. If I observe a vehicle which I believe is going faster than its actual speed limit, then I'll estimate the speed. I'll estimate the speed at maybe if it's depending on how fast the vehicle is traveling. After that, I'll activate the LiDAR unit and it'll give me the actual speed. Just measured the speed on several cars that have been traveling north on Main Street. Make sure they're within compliance with the 30-mile-an-hour posted speed limit on here. Most of the cars seem to have been in compliance. I know my equipment's operating properly. The way I know that is as soon as I turn this piece of equipment on, it tests itself, so I know it's accurate, I know it's working properly. Once the gun tells me there's a pass sign, I know that all the components inside are working properly and that there's no failures with the gun itself. The department has no particular procedure of running traffic enforcement on any particular roads. There's no time set, there's no quotas that are set. Most of the time, most commonly, we run radar on roads which are most heavily traveled. However, there's no public way which is exempt from speed enforcement. If the citizen feels that speeding is a problem on their road that they live on, they can call the department and request that traffic enforcement is done on their road. Right now we're on Charlton Street measuring the speed of vehicles going by. Charlton Street is one of our highly targeted roads because of the fact that it is thickly settled in areas. There's a very large amount of traffic that comes through here both day and night, and actually all times of the day. And it's a posted road of only 30 miles per hour. In some sections it does turn to 35, but for a very short distance. This particular section, Charlton Street, is 30 miles per hour, and again, it's of great concern because of the high amount of traffic that comes through here. Often the speeds are exceeded between 10 and 20 miles per hour or more, and again, there's a highly residential area. So, again, this is one of our more targeted areas. The goal of the police department's speed enforcement program is not ultimately to write tickets. is to reduce the number of fatalities and injuries that occur every year from motor vehicle accidents. The public can help us achieve this by 1, buckling up when they get into a vehicle and obeying posted speed limits. However, if you are caught violating one of the town's speed limits, you may receive a citation. Depending on the violation that was committed, a citation may cost you several $100s in fines. It also may cost you several $100s in insurance surcharges also. Or, worst case scenario, it could wind you up with a day in court.
I'm Reverend Megan Como, the pastor here at Westchester Congregational Church, where the Field of Flags is currently being displayed, honoring the fallen soldiers from Iraq and Afghanistan. We currently have over 2,000 flags, and more are being added every day as soldiers are being killed. Behind me is one flag for every soldier who has given his or her life overseas for our freedom. The Field of Flags began at Somers Congregational Church in Somers, Connecticut, and has since made its way to Virginia, North Carolina, and many places in Connecticut. If your church is interested in having the Field of Flags there, please contact Somers Congregational Church at area code 860-763-4021 or Westchester Congregational at 860-267-0480. The flag arrangement takes about 3 hours to display and stays at your church for about 4 weeks at a time. It's important for our church to remember that the Field of Flags is not a display for or against the war, but rather a display of support for our soldiers and their families.